If I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the first feature-length film by Melina Matsoukas, who appears to have been mostly doing music videos before this. And she's not the only director who's gone down this path, and usually it seems to work out, because these people tend to have an eye for the visual side of things. And they also tend to understand how to make things exciting to watch. And as far as the visuals go, she delivered. I think it's a really good looking movie. It looks crisp and stylish without feeling too overlit, too sleek and boring. And when it comes to the overall presentation and the story here, it's different than what I expected. Because it's an extremely slow and relatively quiet movie with only 2 characters on screen for most of the time. And just a heads up, I'm gonna pretty much have to give away what happens in the first 10 minutes or so, because that's when the thing that pretty much sets everything in motion happens. And without giving away what that thing is, there's not really much to talk about. But yeah, the story here follows these 2 people who are out on a date. And on the drive home, they get pulled over in what should be a routine traffic stop. But these 2 are 2 black people out at night, and the cop isn't the most compassionate or understanding type. So things escalate, get very intense, and go in a direction they shouldn't. But we've all seen similar things in the news, and unfortunately that's what makes this so gripping. The fact that this could absolutely happen, although it definitely shouldn't. And I gotta say, I loved the opening to this movie, the dialogue at the diner, the build-up and the tension, and how it all then was released during this traffic stop. And after that, it went down a few slightly illogical paths with the story, but I was hanging in there. I trusted it, I was confident it would get back on track and keep things interesting. However, at one point I was starting to feel borderline bored with it, because not much was going on. And I was thinking we had to be over halfway through the movie at that point. So I looked at the time and realized we were only 45 minutes into it. And that there was still 90 minutes left, and that's when I knew there was gonna be trouble. And I knew that if things didn't change, this movie would start to lose me, fast. And unfortunately things didn't really change, instead it just kept going at it with a very slow and steady pace. And I don't mind the slow and steady pace, as long as it's still interesting and compelling. But this one though, really didn't do much for me for the majority of the runtime. Mainly because there's nothing really there, there's nothing going on for most of it. It's just these 2 people drifting from one situation to the next, and there's no sense of urgency or anything. There's nothing keeping up the pace, keeping it exciting and gripping. And I said something similar to this in a recent review, and I don't remember which one. But in this you could really feel the writers working, struggling to come up with content. Because it's essentially about 2 people going from point A to point B, and that's it. And there's only so many logical and interesting things that can happen in between. But if you want to pad the runtime to make it a feature-length movie, you'll have to come up with all sorts of things, and most of those things they came up with for this felt inane and unnecessary. Now, had they stuck to a runtime like 90 minutes, I could see this working. There's probably enough interesting stuff in there for a 90-minute movie. But this is 2 hours and 10 minutes, and by the end of it I'd completely lost interest. And that's a shame, because it started off so well and I really wanted to like it too. And there are things to like about it, like the visuals and a lot of the dialogue. I also really liked Daniel Kaluuya's performance in this, I thought he was great. But overall I just think the narrative lacked substance and actual interesting content. And what it tried to do with the whole racial politics angle felt almost like an afterthought too. Like they wanted it in there for obvious reasons, but then didn't really know what to do with it. And yeah, I didn't end up being a huge fan of this at all. It just really bored me, and that's one of the worst things a movie can do. But would I recommend it? Not really, but hey, if it sounds interesting, maybe give it a shot. Or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you'd like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.